Hi, the last 3 days or so, I've been working on this 2x2 Ohio Star variation outdoor barn quilt. So I wanted to show you how it came together. So I get my aluminum composite boards from Piedmont Plastics. They're all across the United States and you can order from them. I used my sander with a high grit and I went over it in circles just to kind of rough it up so that the primer would bond with it. And then I am just brushing on KILZ. I use the mold and mildew. You can use any kind of KILZ primer for this. Once that gets good and dry, I'm going to use my friction erasable pen and go through and put my marks every, I think 4 inches. And there's my pattern I'm going by, and it's from Two Hearts Desire. I found it on Google, and I am connecting the lines based on the pattern. So that one was 1 over to 2 down diagonally, and that goes on all 4 sides. And then I'm going to do my parallel lines. That is just 1 down to 1 down, turn it 1 down to 1 down. I do have a like a Lazy Susan turntable board underneath, but I'm on my desk for this and it did not have room to spin well. So I'm just kind of connecting the 4-inch down, and I made a couple of boo-boos, and so you'll see me go back with my Prismacolor eraser, and that just really does well without messing up my paint to get all those markings. And I use the Prudy 1-inch brushes, and I'm using green frog tape, and I have a dispenser that just makes it so much easier. So if you're thinking of getting into outdoor barn quilting, my big suggestion is to go ahead and invest in a tape dispenser. And then I'm going to use my WorkPro utility knife to cut away where that tape overlaps, because one of the things I have learned through this journey is that it's better to go ahead and just tape off everything you need for a color, and use your utility knife to cut away where it overlaps. When I first started, I would only tape off stuff that wasn't touching, and then for that color I'd tape it off again and tape it off again, and this just really speeds up the process. And I just have, a little 6-inch metal ruler that I use as a guide. I've seen pros at this that don't even need a guide, but I can't draw a straight line, so there's that. So I'm going in with my background color, which is Pale Bloom. This is a Valspar interior paint sample, and it's okay that it's interior and I'm putting this outside. It's going to be sealed, and it actually keeps its color better than the exterior paints do. If you watch carefully, you'll see that I brush down the line of tape that seals in the frog tape, and then I try really, really, really hard to brush away from the corners, because you don't want to brush up towards the edge of the tape. But once you run your paint across that edge, it does kind of do a seal. In between coats, I wrap my brush in a Clorox wipe and put it in a Ziploc bag so I don't have to wash it over and over again. And then I add my second coat. My first coat is super duper duper thin. My second coat is thin, but not quite as thin. And again, I try to brush away from the tape. Sorry about the fuzziness here. I don't know what was going on with my camera. But when I pull away my tape, I try to keep it close to the board and go at a 90-degree angle away from the tape line, or the paint line. That just helps have nice, clean, crisp lines without pulling up any of your paint that you want to stay on your board. And I do use a weeding tool sometimes to kind of get my tape started. Now, when I go in and tape my second round, my second color, if it overlaps with a color that I've already painted, when I put my tape down, I want to make sure that I see a teeny tiny little strip of that color, because that way I know I'm not going to have a gap between those two. And a lot of times when I just have my marked lines, I am going a little bit on the outside edge of that line for my taping as well. And by the time I get to my last taping, if there's any lines that are halfway wonky, you can most of the time fix that. So again, just brushing on that second coat a little heavier than the first time, pulling my tape away and pulling away from the paint close to the board at a 90 degree angle. And when you start, you'll get the hang of it. And you can kind of see there what I mean about going on just slightly on the outside edge of the previous color anytime they overlap. And I am just getting all that taped up, and then I'm going to go in and cut away any of the overlaps so that I have my nice triangles. And for this taping, when I was cutting away, I missed a spot. So I was hardcore painting and boom, had to stop and cut some wet painted tape away. I've never done that before, so that was new. But no big deal. Just go with the flow. So just getting that cut away and pulling it up with my weeding tool when I can. I try to be really careful when I am trying to pull tape away from paint, areas that are already painted, because I don't want to pick at that paint and nick it, because I'd like to have fewer touch-ups. I definitely don't want to cause more. So I've gone in with Quietude, and then this is Phoenix Tears, and these two shades are just slightly different. The Phoenix, there's my mess up. The Phoenix Tears will dry just slightly darker than the Quietude that I used in those corners. Wrapping it up, letting everything dry really well. You can tell when it dries because it like dulls out, it's kind of shiny when it's wet, and then it dulls out. Doesn't take too long unless it's really humid. This weekend here, very humid. Very humid. So it took a little extra time, but that's okay. I feel like that's why it took 2.5 days to get it done, because the paint was taking a while to dry, and I am not able to seal it yet, because when you put on your sealant, it has to be under a certain level of humidity or it's just not going to set up correctly. So right there, you can see I left a bigger lip. I was making a correction on that darker triangle. It needed to have better points, so I just kind of pulled back on that white square just to make my corners nice and sharp. No big deal. And then I'm going in with Mallard. Love, love, love this color. Again, brushing down the side of the tape and then away from the tape as much as possible, especially the corners. Especially corners that you cut away, like points, you don't want to cause any paint to slip up under there and have a bleed. So there we have all of the painting, and I'm going in and zooming in and showing you all of the little touch-ups. I will tell you that a lot of these touch-ups you could leave, because when this is hung outside, nobody is going to see them from a distance. But I'm just a tiny bit of a perfectionist, so I'm going in and fixing them. Sometimes I will put my tape there just to kind of give me a nice little sharp line, and other times, like there, I can freehand it. It just kind of depends on the area. Sometimes, you have to turn your wrist a certain way to get a spot, and that makes it more difficult. But I try again to do 2 coats. And if it's a line, a lot of times I'll kind of feather it away from where it is just so that it kind of blends out into the layers of paint that are already there. So there were quite a few touch-ups with the Phoenix Tears, and then just a little with the Quietude, none with Mallard, and then quite a few with Pale Bloom, because that was the first color. So, you know, there were a lot of tapings on top of that pulled up little spots of it. And there was one bleed that I tried to get up with my weeding tool, and it did not work. And there in the center, somehow I had lightly smeared some Mallard on top. Not a big deal. I may have been able to wash it away if I had noticed it before it dried. But it is super easy to do touch-ups. So there it is, totally finished. Yay! I love it, love it, love it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe.